What really happens inside one of the world's toughest prisons, where lifers are buried alive in concrete and forgotten by time. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Zimo Voice for more untold documentaries. In the far east of Ukraine, not far from the industrial sprawl of Kharkiv, there stands a place that few dare to speak of openly. Hidden behind high concrete walls and barbed wire fences lies a world apart. A world sealed off from the city, from society, from hope itself. This is Colony 100, one of the harshest prisons in all of Ukraine, a place feared even by those who have spent much of their lives behind bars. Kharkiv itself is a city with a heavy past. Once the proud second capital of Soviet Ukraine, its factories built engines, armored vehicles, weapons, and machines that fueled an empire. But after the Soviet Union crumbled, Kharkiv fell into decline. Industries closed, jobs vanished, and poverty became a constant shadow. With economic collapse came crime. Gangs roamed the neighborhoods, drugs circulated widely, theft became routine, and violence spilled into the streets. When men were caught, they were sentenced. And when they were sentenced again and again, when they became repeat offenders, the system eventually sent them here, to Colony 100. The statistics of Ukrainian prisons are staggering. 7 out of every 10 men released will reoffend. Many drift in and out of cells like revolving doors. But Colony 100 is not just another prison. It is a last stop. It is the end of the road. Those who enter this colony are men the courts have deemed beyond reform. Some are thieves and robbers who could not abandon crime. Others are drug dealers who poison their own communities. But among them are darker figures: serial killers, rapists, murderers whose deeds shocked an entire nation. For some, sentences carry a number: 15 years, 20, 25. For others, there is no number at all, only a single word: life. And in Ukraine, life means life. There is no parole, no second hearing, no release on good behavior. The men sentenced to life will leave Colony 100 only in death. It is morning. The gates creak open, and a transport van arrives, carrying 5 new prisoners. The men shuffle out, shackled and silent, their eyes lowered. This is not the first prison for any of them. They have been through intake procedures before. They know the barking of guards, the paperwork, the endless rules. But they also know this place is different. The weight of Colony 100 hangs heavy in the air, thicker than the concrete walls that surround them. Inside, the process begins. Guards line the corridor, watching with blank expressions. Each prisoner steps forward, called not by name but by number. Their clothing is stripped, their possessions searched, their bodies checked for scars, tattoos, contraband. They are measured, photographed, registered. Then the rules are explained. Hands behind your back, eyes down, stand on the white line, obey without hesitation. In many ways, the procedures are relics of another time, echoes of the Soviet penal system that once stretched from Ukraine to Siberia. Colony 100 is a place built not just to contain, but to break. Its gray walls, its iron gates, its military drills, all are designed to strip individuality and enforce absolute control. The prison is divided into zones. The main zone is for recidivists, men who have returned again and again. Here, life is ruled by routine. Wake up at dawn, work in the colony's labor workshops, march in formation, eat in silence, return to the barracks. Orders enforced with an iron hand. Punishments for even the smallest disobedience are swift. But beyond the zone lies another, a smaller, darker section. This is the prison within the prison. Here, the lifers are kept. Murderers, serial predators, men whose crimes make them infamous even among criminals. Their cells are small, 12 square meters, housing 2 or 3 men who will never again see freedom. Every morning, guard patrols walk these corridors. They know who sits behind each iron door. They know the crimes. They know the faces. And they know that many of these men are waiting only for death. One inmate here is remembered for raping and killing 2 young girls. Another, named Serenko, kept women captive for weeks, torturing them before ending their lives. A third had once been a fireman, a man sworn to protect, who instead turned predator, murdering for innocent people. These men live in silence and routine, In the endless repetition of days that stretch forward without end, there is no rehabilitation here, no redemption, only survival. For the guards, the task is not easy. They work among men who have no hope, men who have nothing left to lose. Some guards describe their job not as keeping prisoners alive, but as keeping them from killing themselves before their sentences are carried out to their natural end. Suicide attempts are common. Violence is frequent. The tension inside these walls never fades. Colony 100 is not simply a prison. It is a symbol of Ukraine's struggles, of its harsh justice, of a society still haunted by its Soviet past. Within its walls, human lives are measured not by years or decades, but by the weight of their crimes and the silence of their punishment. The daily rhythm of Colony 100 is relentless, almost ritualistic, as though time itself has been broken into rigid segments. For the inmates, each day begins in the same way, the blare of a siren or the sharp command of a guard. The prisoners rise from their narrow bunks, the air already heavy with the smell of damp concrete, unwashed clothes, and the faint sting of disinfectant. The first roll call takes place at dawn. Men stand in line, hands behind their backs, eyes fixed on the floor. No one speaks unless ordered to. The guards move slowly along the rows, their boots echoing against the stone floor. A name, a number, a response. Every man is accounted for. It is a ritual of control, repeated morning after morning, year after year. Once the count is finished, prisoners are divided according to their status. Those in the recidivist zone are herded toward the workshops. They file through long corridors, their footsteps in unison, watched from every angle by cameras and towers. In the workshops, they are set to labor. Some cut steel, others stitch uniforms. A few work in the kitchens or in maintenance. For many, the labor is meaningless, the wages almost non-existent. But refusal is not an option. To refuse is to invite punishment, and punishment here can be brutal. The lifers, meanwhile, remain in their cells. Their world is confined to four walls, a small bar window, and a steel door. They eat in their cells, sleep in their cells, exist in their cells. Twice a day, they are allowed outside into small exercise yards, cages of concrete and wire, where they pace in circles for an hour before being locked away again. For them, the days blur into one another until memory itself begins to fade. The atmosphere in the lifers' block is one of suffocating silence. Conversations are rare, and when they happen, they're often low and guarded. Trust is a currency that does not exist here. Every man has blood on his hands, and every man knows that those around him are capable of the worst. Some stare endlessly at the ceiling. Others scribble notes that will never leave their cell, and a few retreat into themselves so completely that they seem more ghost than man. But beneath this monotony, tension simmers. Violence is never far away. A glance held too long, a word spoken in the wrong tone, a gesture mistaken for disrespect. These can ignite sudden eruptions of rage. Guards know it, and prisoners know it too. Inmates sharpen bits of metal, break glass to make crude blades, conceal contraband in ways that even daily searches cannot always uncover. The guards themselves are hardened men. Many have worked in the prison for decades. They know the routines as well as the prisoners, and they walk the corridors with a cold attachment of professionals who long ago learned to shut off empathy. For some, the job is simply survival, a way to earn wages in a region where work is scarce. But others come to relish the power they hold, the knowledge that with a gesture or a command, they can shape the fate of men who will never again see the world beyond the walls. And yet, guards live with constant fear as well. They know the statistics. They know how many of their colleagues have been attacked, ambushed, or even killed by prisoners who saw an opportunity and took it. They know that in the eyes of lifers, a guard is not a man, but a symbol, the embodiment of the cage that holds them. Life in Colony 100 grinds onward with this uneasy balance. Some prisoners grow old here, their hair turning gray in the same cells where they once arrived young and defiant. Others do not last, broken by despair, consumed by illness, or driven to end their lives by their own hand. Colony 100 is not a place where men are reformed. It is a place where they are stored, a warehouse of human ruin, where the days stretch into years and the years into lifetimes, until the outside world forgets the names of those within. Inside these walls, individual stories reveal themselves like fractured mirrors, each one reflecting a life gone wrong, each one darker than the last. There is Serhiy, a man who has spent nearly 2 decades in Colony 100. Once, he was a husband and a father, a mechanic in a small Ukrainian town. But alcohol and violence corroded everything. One night, in a drunken rage, he beat a man to death outside a bar. He remembers little of it, only flashes of fists, blood, and shouting. Now he spends his days in silence, pacing the cell, muttering under his breath, as if replaying the night again and again. He has long since stopped receiving visits. His wife divorced him. His children will not speak his name. In Colony 100, Serhiy has nothing but his guilt, and even that is dulled into a kind of numbness. Then there is Anton, younger, only in his early 30s, but already serving a life sentence. His crime was colder. He and 2 accomplices kidnapped a businessman for ransom. When the plan unraveled, Anton slit the man's throat. He speaks of it with chilling calmness, almost pride. To him, life inside is just another kind of challenge. He lifts weights, tattoos his body with crude ink, and tells guards that the prison cannot break him. But behind his bravado, there is emptiness. He knows he will die here, no matter how many muscles he builds or how many scars he carves into his skin. Another inmate, Victor, barely speaks at all. His cell is filled with drawings, endless sketches of forests, rivers, and open fields. He was once a hunter, a man who loved the wilderness. But he murdered his neighbor in a dispute over land, and then shot 2 policemen who tried to arrest him. Now the only forest he will ever see again is the one he sketches in pencil, scratching tree after tree onto the yellowing paper. The guards sometimes mock him, asking if he thinks his drawings will open the doors. But he ignores them. Drawing is the only way he resists the weight of despair. Stories like these echo through every cell. Each man clings to something, memories, bitterness, faith, or madness. Some pray, whispering to saints and icons pasted onto walls. Others sharpen hatred instead, vowing revenge on a world that locked them away. And a few simply collapse inward, becoming shadows that shuffle through the corridors without words. Among lifers, hierarchies form. The strongest and most ruthless take control, enforcing their own codes on others. A single cigarette can determine loyalty. A smuggled phone can grant power. Rumors ripple through the blocks like fire, and alliances are fragile, shifting with each new arrival. The guards try to control this hidden order, but they cannot erase it. They know some inmates run businesses even from behind bars, smuggling drugs, ordering crimes on the outside, keeping their networks alive. Colony 100 may be a cage, but the men inside are not powerless. Still, most live only with the slow erosion of time. The days blend one into another until memory becomes unreliable. Prisoners forget the sound of children laughing, the scent of spring air, the softness of a woman's touch. Instead, their world becomes steel doors, harsh commands, and the ever-present silence of confinement. The colony eats away at them in ways invisible to the eye. The body grows weaker. The mind frays. Hope, if it ever existed, eventually dies. The struggle between guards and inmates at Colony 100 is an endless chess game, played in silence and shadows. On the surface, discipline reigns. Orders are barked, men obey. Cells are locked and unlocked with mechanical precision. But beneath this rigid routine lies a constant current of defiance. The prisoners know they cannot overpower the system outright. The walls are too thick, the gates too heavy, the guards too many. Instead, resistance takes quieter forms, contraband smuggled through food deliveries, coded messages hidden in letters, bribes offered to corrupt officials. Even the smallest act of defiance, a glance that lingers too long, a whispered insult, is a way of clawing back a shred of dignity in a place designed to strip it away. The guards, for their part, are not fools. They sense the undercurrents, the hidden economy of cigarettes, razor blades, and pills. They know when something is brewing long before it erupts. Many of them have learned to strike first. Searches carried out at random hours, cells torn apart in minutes. Prisoners marched into isolation for weeks at a time. These actions are meant not just to punish, but to remind everyone who truly holds the power. And yet, for all their authority, the guards are never free of fear. They move in pairs, sometimes in groups, rarely alone. They know that violence can explode suddenly without warning. A sharpened toothbrush, a piece of wire pulled from a bed frame. Even the smallest object can become a weapon in desperate hands. In Colony 100, the line between control and chaos is always razor thin. Some guards adopt cruelty as a shield. They speak to prisoners with contempt, mock their crimes, enforce punishments harshly. It is easier to see the inmates not as men, but as beasts who must be caged. Others adopt distance, keeping their humanity locked away behind a mask of indifference. A few, the rarest, try to reach across the divide, offering a word of kindness, a moment of respect, but they, too, risk being seen as weak by both sides. For the prisoners, every interaction is calculated. To show submission too readily is to lose respect among their peers. To challenge a guard openly is to invite retribution. Survival requires balance, a careful dance between obedience and defiance, silence and rebellion. In this hidden war, time itself becomes the greatest weapon. Decades stretch ahead, and both guards and inmates know that routines will repeat endlessly. What matters is not the day-to-day, but the ability to endure. Some prisoners sharpen their bodies like weapons, lifting makeshift weights to pass the hours. Others sharpen their minds, memorizing books, learning laws, preparing appeals they know may never succeed. And some simply give in, their spirits broken, drifting through each day with vacant eyes. The psychological toll is immense. Men who have spent years in solitary speak of hearing voices, of shadows that seem to move in the corners of their cells. Others describe dreams so vivid that waking feels like death, dreams of families they will never see, fields they will never walk, skies they will never touch. Hope becomes a dangerous thing here. To hope is to suffer, and yet without it, a man becomes nothing more than a shell. Colony 100 was not built to heal. It was built to contain, to punish, to bury men alive in concrete and steel. The state does not promise redemption here. It promises only order. But behind those locked doors, behind the endless routines and the clashing wills of guards and inmates, humanity still flickers, fragile, twisted, but unextinguished. Among the lifers of Colony 100, each man carries a story that has been twisted by violence, desperation, or cruelty. Stories that never make the newspapers once the trial is over, but that linger in the walls of the prison like scars. Take Alexander, for example. Once a schoolteacher, respected in his small community, he murdered his wife in a fit of jealousy. The crime shocked his town, and the courtroom turned him overnight from a man of letters into a monster. In prison, he speaks rarely, but when he does, his words are calm, measured, almost professorial. He corrects other inmates' grammar, explains history dates to guards who ask, and keeps a diary that no one but him will ever read. His crime hangs over him like a ghost, but he hides behind learning, as though knowledge might atone for blood. Then there is Mikola, a man whose hands are marked with tattoos from another life, stars across his shoulders, symbols inked into his fingers. He grew up in the criminal underworld, raised by thieves and hardened by prison before he was 20. His last crime was a robbery gone wrong, a shooting that left 2 men dead. In Colony 100, he is a leader of sorts, commanding respect from younger inmates who see him as a survivor. His eyes are cold, but when he laughs, the sound is full of life, almost joyful. To him, prison is not punishment. It is a kingdom where only the strongest can rule. In contrast, Yevon is broken. Thin, pale, his eyes hollow, he spends most of his time sitting on the edge of his bunk, staring at the floor. He was convicted of killing his parents after years of abuse, and while some inmates whisper that his sentence was unjust, the law does not bend. In Colony 100, he is neither feared nor respected. He is simply forgotten. His mind drifts, his voice barely rises above a whisper, and sometimes he doesn't even answer at roll call until a guard strikes the bars with a baton. And then there is Pavlo, whose crime is spoken of in hushed tones even among murderers. He abducted children. The details are too grim to repeat, but in prison, even killers draw lines. Pavlo lives in constant isolation, not only from guards, but from other inmates who would tear him apart if given the chance. His existence is one of perpetual fear, a reminder that even among lifers, there is a hierarchy of sin. These stories weave together into a tapestry of human ruin, a map of how far men can fall. Each prisoner lives in the shadow of his own crime, and yet life continues in strange, distorted ways. Some find religion, clinging to icons, crossing themselves before every meal, attending services in the prison chapel. Others turn to art, carving shapes into wood, sketching faces on scraps of paper, or writing endless letters that may never leave the cell. A few find a kind of pride in survival itself, boasting that no matter what the state does to them, they endure. But the longer they remain, the more the prison reshapes them. Shoulders hunch, eyes grow dull, voices fade. Many arrive defiant, swearing they will not be broken. Years later, those same men shuffle through corridors of the same lifeless gate as everyone else, the fight drained from their bodies. The guards see this transformation and sometimes wonder which is worse, to break quickly or to linger slowly in the shadow of a life already ended. They know some of these men will live another 30 or 40 years in the colony, aging behind the same bars, until death finally releases them. And still the outside world forgets. Families stop visiting. Letters stop arriving. Names are erased from memory. For Ukraine, Colony 100 is just a facility on a map. For the men inside, it is the universe. The walls of Colony 100 do not just hold men. They hold history. Long before it became home to lifers and repeat offenders, prisons like this were part of the Soviet-era network designed not for rehabilitation, but for control. The philosophy was simple. Those who broke the rules of society would be cut away from it, sealed off, and made invisible. That legacy lingers in every corner of Colony 100. The architecture is old, severe, and unyielding. The bars are thick, the gates enormous, the cells deliberately stripped of comfort. For Ukraine, this prison is both a reminder of the past and a burden for the present. The world outside has moved forward, but here, time seems frozen. Inmates age behind the same rusted bars where others before them lived and died. Guards inherit the same routines passed down for decades. The same roll calls, the same punishments, the same endless cycle of survival. And yet, even here, humanity refuses to die. A guard who slips an extra piece of bread to a prisoner. An inmate who teaches another how to read. A lifer who writes poetry by candlelight, hoping that somehow, one day, someone might hear his words. These small sparks do not erase the crimes, nor do they erase the suffering, but they remind us that behind every crime, behind every sentence, there is still a human being, scarred, broken, but alive. The silence of Colony 100 is deceptive. To an outsider, it seems peaceful, orderly. But beneath that silence, there is a constant hum of despair, anger, regret, and defiance. Men pace in their cells, guards walk the corridors, and the daily routines continue. But no matter how rigid the rules, no matter how tight the locks, the truth remains. This is a place where lives are slowly extinguished, not all at once, but drop by drop, year after year. For some, that is justice. For others, it is cruelty. But for the men inside, it is simply existence. And as we close the gates of Colony 100 behind us, one thing becomes clear. Prisons like this are not just places of punishment. They are mirrors. They reflect the darkest parts of society. The choices we make about crime and justice, about punishment and forgiveness. They force us to confront uncomfortable truths about violence, about survival, about what it means to be human when everything has been taken away. Colony 100 will continue to stand, its walls weathered but unbroken, its cells filled with men whose names the outside world will never remember. Inside, life will go on, in silence, in fear, in bitterness, and sometimes in unexpected moments of fragile humanity. This is the world behind the bars. A world most will never see, but one that tells us much about who we are and who we choose to be.